Today I am happy to say I have two of my fellow classmates, fellow legal eagles, John Waller and Nnamdi Ekeh, joining me today. Uh, if you guys recall, at the beginning of the season, I said we would take the time to highlight various business owners in various fields. And so today I'm happy to do that with two of my classmates, both who are in business for themselves. And so before we get into what they do and the types of law they practice, I want to make sure we stick to the tradition of starting with something that we're grateful for. So, John, if you want to get us started, just tell us something that you're grateful for today.
Let me see. It's a very extensive question because I'm grateful for so much. I'm truly blessed, to be honest. I could just sit here and go on for days of everything that I'm thankful for. Health being one thing, I guess, top, family, friends, loved ones, just to name a few, but the list is too extensive to really get into. But health definitely would be number one to be alive, especially in light of what's going on today. Just to be a black man in the DC area or in this nation and to be alive, that's a big thing right there.
Yeah, that is all. Like you said, it's great to look at it that way of just focusing on all the things that we have to be grateful for, especially right now. Namdi, what about you?
I would agree with John. Being grateful just to be alive. See this day with the whole coronavirus thing, um, is crazy. I'm just grateful, thankful for being alive, and being here, talking to you guys, seeing you guys after all this while. It's a blessing. So grateful for that.
Yes, I echo everything you all say. And primarily, I was going to say my thing today is I'm definitely happy, grateful to have you all here joining me on the podcast. Like Namdi said, it's been a while since I've seen you all. John, I've seen you probably maybe the last year or so. Namdi, I don't know. It's been
Yeah,
years. So
yeah, yeah,
I'm grateful for
yeah.
technology that we are able
Hmm.
to do this,
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
be able to see each other, to talk, catch up, and connect. And like I
Hmm.
said, in light of everything that's going on, being safe, although
Hmm.
safe to me has taken on it's different. Like, what does it really mean to be safe? Because in my
True.
house, I feel safe, in my home. But when I step outside of that, like the concept of safety has taken on a whole new meaning. Um,
True.
and like you said, so just with everything going on, I wanted to, like I said, talk to you all about just how you're doing personally, professionally with everything that's going on with the pandemic. And so either of you all can start just um, like what has life been like these last several months for you?
Um, I would say, I mean, the coronavirus kind of made things a little bit slow, so there was much time or more time to reflect personally. So I would say it was like a blessing in disguise because every day it was like, oh, go to work, come back home, sleep, go to work, go to work, go to work, go to work, nonstop. So the coronavirus kind of like halted that, and that gave me a breather. So I'm thankful in a way for that because it was good. Or it is good for my mental health, for my physical health. Um, but over the last couple of weeks, we know what's going on with the whole, incidents with Black lives, law enforcement with Ahmad, with Brianna, and also now with Judge Floyd. So it's been traumatizing to me. Sometimes I just feel like I don't want to do anything. I'm just devastated. I can't focus. So it's taking a hit and a toll on my personal and my professional life the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, that time of reflection is real. What
Yeah,
about you, John?
it's definitely been challenging. If I could sum it up all in one word, both professionally and personally, it's just been a challenge. Trying to occupy your mind, because at the end of the day, mental stimulation is going to be key to survival through this time and era, and anything else that you go through. Mind over matter. If you can survive mentally, you can get through a lot. So for me, just trying to stay active, do different things, starting reading for leisure. I couldn't tell you the last time I read a book for leisure. A lot of people may look at that strange because we're attorneys, so we
Right.
read all the time. Yeah, I read all the time, but it's mostly statutes and
Mm-hmm.
laws,
Case law.
regulations. But the last time I read a book for leisure, it's been some years prior to law school, maybe. So things like that, starting another business, enhancing your own business, whether that's your marketing, your website, little things like that, keeping busy, exercising. Haven't really been active in the past few years, but now that I've had this extra time, getting outside, running, and like Namdi just said, yeah, just it's a silver lining. You got to take the good with the bad, and this opportunity to just reset and
Mm-hmm.
focusing on things that are important, whether that's your family, friends, etc. And you really appreciate this time, and just trying to use your time wisely is key. Like I said, mental stimulation has definitely been key.
Yes, the mental stimulation. You mentioned reading. I've done more of that. Like you said, I used to love reading, like just for the sake of reading, but law school
Yeah,
definitely messed that up because now
yeah,
it's like, okay, I read during the day. I'm trying to review things and understand it. So when I come home, it's like, no, I want to turn my brain off. But these
Mm.
last few months, I've definitely picked up some books that I've had just sitting around. Like, okay, let me just see what's out there, just to read for enjoyment. I actually started, I guess, rereading Martin Luther King Jr.'s last book, Where Do We Go From Here? And
Mm.
it's interesting because everything he was talking about then is like literally happening now.
prophesy.
Um, but um, but like I said, you one of you all said about the silver lining and just focusing on that this time. So a lot of businesses had to close, had to shut down. A lot of people were laid off. But being that you all are in business for yourself, what has that looked like? And I want to make sure that we give a chance. I give you all a chance to tell, what your firms are, what you do, and just what has that looked like these last few months.
It's kind of a tricky question because when people think self-employed, entrepreneurship, they think, hey, you work for yourself, you get to control everything. But to a certain extent, everyone, no matter what industry, no matter what field, you kind of have a boss. And for us, even though
Mm-hmm.
we write our own checks, at the end of the day, our clients are kind of, our boss to some extent. The
Mhm.
courts are kind of, the judges are kind of our boss to some extent. So it's definitely affected, at least my practice. One of my primary focuses is criminal law. So with the courts being closed, I'm kind of restricted. I really can't do anything. My hands are tied behind my back in that specific area. And a lot of the regulations and laws have changed in this area because of the COVID. They weren't arresting as many folks. They were just giving them citations or, letting them go. It just depends on the egregious nature of the offense. Or if it's some type of act of violence, they really weren't being detained. So the clientele is kind of dropped in that area. The courts are closed, not much you can do. But I also practice personal injury. So those cases have kind of, steadily gone through, and I've been able to stay afloat. But it's one thing that I will say, and this is kind of on topic as well. Uh, Money management, especially in private practice and entrepreneurship, is so vital, and it can't be overstated. You have to prepare for the rainy days. That's something that's been vital for me right now. As business is kind of slowed down, you have to prepare for the rainy days. It's inevitable. It's gonna happen. So just try to live below your means. Even if you can afford, something that's up here, just go ahead and buy something right here because, the rainy days are gonna come. And Namdi, being an entrepreneur yourself, I'm sure you can attest to this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree with John here. We pretty much do the same thing. I do criminal defense and I do personal injury. And what he said is accurate because Yeah, we might be our own bosses, but we still need the court system to work for us to get paid. And if the court system is shut down, then we pretty much shut down. So we can't do much. We can't say, oh, you must open because I am on, nah, it doesn't work that way. But yeah, in terms of money management, I agree with that too as well. So these are things that you never really anticipate that stuff like COVID would happen and things are going to be shut down, especially in America. But it happened, and I thank God that I had like the knowledge to at least leave within my means and provide for myself. But it's been tough. It's been tough because I'm not used to. Nobody's used to this, but we're in this together. So you know I feel like we have no choice but to just make it work at this point.
And one more thing, that's very vital. And Namdi, I'm not sure if you were in the same boat, but as far as economic stimulus for these
Mm,
small, I consider myself a boutique firm. Just a solo
mm-hmm,
practitioner. I outsource for various tasks, if you will, but I don't have any employees per se. So I'm
mm-hmm,
considered a small boutique firm. And as far as economic stimulus, I didn't quite qualify because I'm in that gray area. For
mm,
stimulus package, I think it was $1,200. Regardless, I made too much for that, so I didn't qualify. But for the SBA loans and grant,
long.
yeah, and the PPP loan, payroll protection loan, didn't qualify for that because obviously I don't have any employees. So not having any type of relief during this time
Mm,
has been very frustrating. And like I said, I
mm,
just want to reiterate that money management is definitely key. With no type of stimulus or economic relief for us small boutique law firms, I think we were probably hit the hardest. But yeah, you just got to find a way to just survive and get through it.
yeah.
Yes, I'm happy you brought up the PPE loans. I
Yeah.
forget the acronym, but yeah, that's something that I've noticed and just kind of been monitoring in terms of they're saying that it's out there and there's that relief, but that was one thing that I've kind of been curious about of just because I've heard a lot of people saying they were struggling to get responses or to qualify, or they would be told initially they qualified, but then it was taking weeks to get a response. And so that is something that I'm hoping that as we move forward and hopefully out of this pandemic, that all the different areas and issues, kind of those holes that have been exposed in terms of, okay, yeah, the government says they're going to provide this protection and they're looking out for business owners, but there's so many loopholes or cracks that it's like, okay, hey, you guys say you're doing something, but really you're not covering everyone. Everyone's not
Everyone,
included.
exactly.
And so I'm happy to hear that you all have been able to manage, and you had the foresight, kind of ahead of time to make sure that even though you didn't know this was coming, you knew there was a possibility of something, and that you all have been able to stay afloat, to stay in business, um, because there's so many businesses that unfortunately that's not the case for them. But I guess you guys both mentioned, being in business for yourself, kind of you're your own boss and you don't have to answer to anyone. John, I know you're here in the DC, Maryland area. Excuse me. And Namdi, you're in Texas. Um, I know the courts are still closed here. Have they given you all any indication of when courts will reopen, or if have they opened in Texas, Namdi?
Yes, they've opened in Texas.
Okay.
So they are doing like a transition where I think jury trials are going to pick up from August. So we still using like the electronic Zoom, communication for little cases, for non serious cases, hearings, bond hearings. But we'll begin the actual jury trials in August. So there's a transition going on.
Okay. All right, and John, what about here? I know initially it was June 1st because I don't play in court much. I leave that to you all.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's been a lot of confusion back and forth. It's not been a statewide ordinance. They've actually restricted it to each counties. So I think just recently, Montgomery and Prince George County just went into phase one this past Monday. However, the remaining counties in the state were open for phase one, 2 or 3 weeks ago. So trying to stay on top of everything has definitely been key and vital. I actually have a trial, well, supposed to have a trial on this upcoming Tuesday, the 9th, but I'm not sure if the courts will even be open.
Mm.
And that same predicament happened in May, where received a notice from the court, hey, you're scheduled to be in court for a hearing on May 6th. But I know in the back of my mind, hey, everything's shut down for COVID, but I never received a notice saying it was canceled, postponed, whatever the case may be. So it's been a lot of confusion, across the board. You just got to stay diligent. There's no excuse, especially in this profession. There's no excuse, right, wrong, left, right, up, down. You got to stay on top of things. And
True.
that's what I'm doing. This whole time I've been preparing for each one of my cases and trials as though they're going to happen tomorrow. So you just got to stay on top of things. And when they do open, you just flow right back into the arena, get it done. Um, but yeah, it's definitely been a tall task, but you just got to stay on top of things.
Yes. Go, always be ready. I remember it makes me what was it, John, you had Ringer. What was the thing that one of the things he said? I feel like it said something about always being prepared.
Listen, my philosophy is if you stay ready, you never got to get ready.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And that's one of the things, and I've I've always tried to. I haven't yet figured out the best way to explain it to people who aren't attorneys. But just the whole idea of everybody's like, oh, I want to go to court. They see it on TV, and oh, do you go to court? Do you go to trial? And I'm just like, there's so much more to it than what you see, and so much happens before you even get to the courtroom.
Yeah,
And it's always like, hey, I'm gonna be prepared for everything because when I get there, it never goes the way you think it's going to go, or I should say it rarely goes that way. um,
facts.
and that's one of the reasons why it's like I litigate when necessary. And I realized pretty early on in law school that, like, hey, this isn't for me. I don't want to be here. I want to know how, and I want to do as much as I can to help. But you all both ran to that, and you do that. So what was it? I guess when did you realize, like, hey, not only that you wanted to litigate, but that criminal defense was something that you wanted to do?
I,
um.
I'll
Okay.
let you go ahead.
Okay. I think to me, criminal defense and civil rights are kind of like intertwined because I feel like, most times black folks are normally, you know, affected. Normally, there's injustice within the black community. We all know that. Everybody knows that. So I feel like doing criminal defense is like I don't really practice civil rights, but it's my way of saying I'm there for the oppressed. I'm there for those who are going through, police brutality. I'm going to give them my all. I'm going to make sure their rights are protected. I'm going to make sure before you get to him, you must go through me. So that's like my philosophy, and it's a passion to me. It's a passion. I do personal injury cases. I love the money, but I don't really care for it. But I just love the money. But for criminal defense, I get paid less. But whenever I try criminal cases, I'm so heavily invested in it. Like it's like I'm doing this for a cause. I'm doing it because I believe in it. I'm doing it because most of my people are going through things that they shouldn't be going through. So that's how I feel for criminal defense.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have the same sentiments as Namdi. The PI cases are great, and it really is what keeps the lights on. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, it can be, extremely financially rewarding, but your why, or at least my why, is the criminal aspect of it. You know,
Hmm.
representing the underserved, underprivileged, and those who are taken advantage of constantly, daily, minorities, to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you're advocating for their rights. And for me, it's more personal. I grew up. I was a knucklehead growing up, and a black man growing up in D.C. It's just almost inevitable that you're gonna get in some type of trouble. And I was one of those young knuckleheads who got into trouble. But luckily for me, I had an attorney to come and help me to make sure that I wasn't taken advantage of. And I truly appreciated that. And I thought to myself, hey, if this is what's going on, maybe I need to pay this forward and make sure the
Mm,
next young man isn't taken, or young female isn't taken advantage of. A lot of minorities don't know what's going on, don't know their rights,
true.
don't know how to advocate for themselves, and need some assistance, and sometimes don't have the financial ability to pay for services. But once I got into law school, I kind of knew what it is that I wanted to do, but the how. I was
Mm-hmm.
I was very fearful of public speaking, and it was one professor, Professor Hayes. If you all remember from trial practice, she just pulled me to the
Mm-hmm.
side and said, "Hey, you're good at this. What's the problem?" I had a fear of public speaking. She said, "Why?" Well, I thought to myself, I said, "Damn, I don't have a why. I don't know why. I'm fear of public speaking." And I thought maybe if I say something that didn't sound right, or people would judge me or look at me and fear that I wouldn't,
Mm-hmm.
just stutter or something, anything like that. And she said, "You know what? If you know your case frontwards and backwards, there's nothing that someone can say to trip you up. If you really are prepared," and that's why I said, you stay ready so you never have to get ready. If you stay ready, if you are truly prepared, know your case, know everything about your case, there's nothing someone can say that can trip you up. And I said, you know what? I, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So that instilled the confidence in me to follow my passion, which is the criminal aspect of it. And yeah, I've been saving a lot of lives here,
Mm.
the few years that I've been practicing, and that is more rewarding than the financial compensation of the PI cases, personal injury cases. But yeah, it's definitely vital, vital.
Well, yes, I appreciate you all. I know that your clients do, but I definitely appreciate you all, personally, just from knowing you, but also the work that you're doing. Because, like you said, more often, or far too many times, black people and brown, but my primarily black people, we are given the short end of the stick, just automatically assumed, we're presumed guilty until proven innocent, when it's really supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. And far too many times that's, it just doesn't happen and it doesn't fall our way. And so I know when I was in private practice or working for a firm, one of the things that kind of was, I would say, just very frustrating. And I was doing landlord tenant law, but not being able to, when we would have clients and I was assigned a case, and I could tell that the client was just, they were a landlord, and I'm like, hey, quite frankly, they were slumlords. And
Mm,
I, it
Mm.
went against everything that I personally believed in, and then having to be there in court and trying to represent them and explain to a tenant why, okay, I understand all of the things you're saying, but hey, you didn't pay your rent, so we're filing for eviction. And like that just kept, it just bothered me, and it was just so difficult, and got to the point where it's like, hey, I can't keep doing this because
Mm.
I don't want to represent someone that I just don't believe in, I disagree with, but hey, I'm working for someone else. It's not my choice. I can't fire you. I still have to zealously advocate for you. And so that was for me, I got to the point where I was like, hey, I can't do this. And I left. I went into higher ed and was focusing on working with students. But it also was like one of the things for me is like, hey, I don't want to have to keep representing clients that I don't agree with or I don't believe in. And so I guess I want to know from you all, because I know you all both started your firms fairly early in terms of going out on your own, but what was what was a motivating factor for you all in terms of, I not only want to do this work, or practice in this area of law, but I want to do it on my own terms.
Um, for me, I have a problem with people telling me what to do. I don't know. I've always been like that. So I just can't do it. So even the option of working with the DA's office, I had an option working with the DA's office. I also felt like my convictions wouldn't let me be a DA because no matter how hard I try, you're gonna be brainwashed into the system. You know, us versus the defendants, the criminals, the thugs, all that stuff. I couldn't do that. So I figured, the best thing for me to do is just start my practice. That way, whatever convictions I have, whatever beliefs I have, it stays within me and it flows in my practice. And I would have no remorse, no guilt whenever I do my job. I don't want to go somewhere and they tell me, oh, we can't pick this client because is this, and that, or we can't take this case because this, that, and that. I can't deal with that. So I figured the best thing for me to do is start my own firm. Even though I was making less at the time, is at the end of the day, it became rewarding for me because the satisfaction of doing what I love and being able to control what I can do and using my firm as a foundation to create awareness for multiple things, even things that we are going through now, is a blessing for me. So, I just thank God for that.
Yeah, it seems like we're constantly echoing one another. Nambi, like
It's
everything
nice to
you're
see
saying,
you, man.
I have the same mentality. Obviously, because we're both entrepreneurs and business owners, so
Uh-huh.
we have to
Hmm.
have that same
Yeah.
mentality. But yeah, just growing up, I've always had an issue with authority. Um,
Mm.
Being told what to do just doesn't sit right with me.
It's true.
And no shade to anybody who is conforming to the norms of the 9 to 5. Stay in your lane. If that's your lane, stay in your lane. But that just wasn't my lane.
Mm.
I like to march to the beat of my own drums. I like to come and go as I please, get up when I please. And like you said, Namdi, take the cases that you want to take or
Mm-hmm.
refuse cases that you don't want. Just to
Mm-hmm.
have that flexibility and do what you want to do, what you think is right,
Mm-hmm.
morally right and sound, and everything. And I didn't like getting up early and have to be at somebody's desk at 9 to 5. I get up when I want, take the cases that I want,
Mm-hmm.
so on and so forth. So that flexibility is just priceless. And like you, I don't mind taking the pay cut. I don't mind making a little bit less than what you would at these big law firms,
Mm-hmm.
to have that flexibility, and that's just priceless to me.
Yeah.
That's priceless to me. But kind of reverting back to what you were saying, Tavia, and I kind of got the sense that there was some moral strife between what you were doing, what was your job, and what you just felt inside. And that kind of brings me to another topic, and Nanda, you can kind of discuss this, and we'll probably have similar ideas on this. But yeah, it's many a times people have confronted me and say, "Hey, you're a criminal defense lawyer. How can you represent somebody that you know is guilty?"
Mm.
We're
Mm.
confronted with this question every day. And for me, uh, my blanket mindset and my practice is that every saint has a past and every sinner has a future.
Mm.
So I represent these people just to make sure if they are guilty, not saying that anyone is or everyone is, but even if they are guilty and they did whatever crime, uh, you know, I'm here to make sure that you're not taken advantage of, to try to mitigate damages. Um, Instead of 6 years, we get it down to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you committed a bad act doesn't make you a bad person. And like I
Mm-hmm.
said, I have my past, and look how I turned out. I think I'm in a pretty good position now. So just because a young man did X, Y, and Z doesn't make him a bad person. Doesn't mean he can't learn from his mistake and grow on and live a righteous life. So that's what I'm here to do. And a win in my profession and my mindset is not just a matter of guilty or non-guilty. That's a fluid statement. It's more about like I said, mitigating and making sure that no one is taken advantage of. So if I can get that 6 reduced to 6 months, 6 years to 6 months, that's a win for me. That's a win for me. So, but there are some conflicts, and Tavia, as you said, if there are some moral or ethical dilemmas or issues, you can get out of it, and that's what me and Namdi have, that flexibility to get out of things, and that's what comes with the territory of being your own boss.
Yeah, I agree with John. Definitely, I get that question all the time. How do you represent these people? I'm like, which people? These are regular people. I mean, they just made a mistake sometimes. I always tell them, hey, look, if you got a problem with that, go and argue with the forefathers. Don't argue with me because they provided in the Constitution that everybody has a right to an attorney. Everybody has a right to a fair trial. Everybody is presumed innocent unless proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I didn't make that law up. Those are rights that we all have. So we can't pick and choose which rights apply to each person. Every right applies. We are all accorded that right. So my job is not to judge anybody. My job is to make sure that my client's rights are protected. Even though he's guilty, even though he did the most violent crime, my job is to make somebody got to do the dirty work. I mean, that's what it is. My job is just to make sure his rights are protected and he's not getting, a bad treatment or, like you said, something that will do for 6 months. They want to put him in for 6 years. That's just unfair. And the funniest thing is, folks ask this stuff, but they don't think that it could happen to them until it happens to them. You know, I just it's like it could happen to you. It can happen to your loved one. You never know when you're gonna need that. So you can't just say you should stop. Like, how do you represent these folks? Nah, it's because you never know when you're gonna need it, and it's a right that we all have. So that's what I tell them.
Yeah, that part. The fact that the part of just ensuring that their process, that their rights are honored, like you said, regardless of whether you did it or not. The point is, so many times, and I'm just thinking, I was watching the movie Brian Banks last night, and it was just another reminder of how, in that case, he was innocent. If you guys remember,
Mm,
he was the one that was a rising football star. He got falsely accused of raping someone and then spent, I think, 6 years in prison, 3 years on probation, and finally was able to get the person. She recanted her story and he was exonerated. But even just in watching that, it was just another reminder of when you don't have an attorney, or sometimes even you have an attorney who's, I would say, doesn't have as strong a conviction about making sure that justice is served, and that we're going to zealously advocate, because he was advised to just take a plea deal. As
mm,
I'm sure you all know, a lot of people are just like, hey, just take this plea that way, because you don't want to take the chance. But it's really, to me, when I hear zealously advocate, or just everything that I think about in terms of being an attorney and representing clients and whatever type of case it is, it's about ensuring that justice is served, and that, hey, these laws were put out here, even though I don't always agree with some of them, but this is the process, is the rules that you said, that the way it's supposed to go, then I'm here to make sure that that happens, and that we get the
mm-hmm.
best outcome for you in the in light of all of the circumstances. Um, and so I hear, when both of you all talk, I hear the passion. And so I know that that's like a driving force in terms of why you start, like why you do what you do, why you started your firms. But if you had to, because I know part of being in business for yourself is that marketing piece. And like you said, you got to get clients. So if you had to say, like, hey, what sets law office of John A. Waller apart from the others? What separates Ekeh Law Firm from the others? Like, what would you all say is the thing, or that essence that sets you all apart?
Well, that is the $1 million question. That is a great question, and I don't know how it is in Texas, but here in DC, it's oversaturated with attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I read somewhere in a report that DC had the most attorneys per capita in the nation, and I can see it. There's a lot of attorneys in this area. It's oversaturated, but you have to do something to stand out. You have to have some type of competitive advantage. And for me, I always look at these bigger law firms and see what they're uh, not what they're doing wrong, and how I can improve upon that. And what's special about a smaller boutique law firm is that uh, you have that accessibility, and a lot of clients appreciate that. I can't tell you how much feedback, positive feedback I've gotten from clients because I was always available. When you call me, it was me answering the phone. And if I didn't answer right then and there, I was tied up in court or with another client or something, I guaranteed to call back within 24 hours. When you called, you spoke to me, like I said, and not a secretary or another associate or something like that. And clients really appreciate that one-on-one communication. They want to call and be able to speak to their attorney. And I've had many a clients that jumped ship that were with another attorney before, and kind of felt neglected, and came to me and said, hey, I didn't like the way things were proceeding, and I appreciate you for coming in and taking the time to really listen to our problems, and also be effective. But at the end of the day, I like to think that all attorneys are competent. Some may
Mm-hmm.
argue yay or nay, but we've all gone to law school. We've all passed the bar, so there's some level of competency, but you have to do things that are going to stand out and set you apart. And that level of communication really, really goes a long way. And one more thing that I would say I've gotten from clients' feedback is the realness, keeping it 100,
Mm-hmm.
telling it like it is. Not sugarcoating everything. Say, hey, if it's not looking good, it's not looking good, and this is why it's not, or this is more than likely what's going to happen. You're looking at 6 months, my guy, because of XYZ. You got a criminal background. This was egregious crime, so on and so forth. Like, tell it like it is. They appreciate that. They appreciate that candidness, or the valuation of your claim for a PI case. You had some soft tissue injuries, and it was a low impact property damage, so it's only worth X, Y, and Z. So that constant communication, accessibility, and that realness for me has been key, and they really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree with John 100% again. I mean, we are on the same page 100 these days, man.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we're on the same page. Yeah. Yeah, because from my perspective, I don't see the client as a file. I see him as a person, as a human. In other practices, other big law firms, they have so many cases or so many, clients. It's like this file, not this client. So we try to, make sure we have that personal touch, that one-on-one touch with our clients. Also, I was going to hint a thing in regards to being real. That is also a key, because I try to make sure my clients, they have an understanding of what's going on with their cases. They have easy access to me. They have my cell phone. They text me. They add me on social media. I mean, I don't really care. You can add me out. You see what my personal life is, and it all boils down to the passion. Some people do this for the paycheck, but we do this because we have passion, because we know what we went through to get to where we are. Me, you, John, we know. We both went to a HBCU. We know how HBCU got into place. So it's something that we are taking on from our forefathers. It's like this is not for a paycheck. This is not just for the money. This is what we have to do. This is the least we could do, following our forefathers behind us. So to me, having that and having, accessibility to our clients and they have to us is just a blessing. And I think that sets us apart, because it comes from a passion, not more with getting paid. That's how I see it.
Yeah, yes, the passion. Like I said, I hear it, and I am certain that listeners and viewers will hear it as well. Just the passion that you all have when you're talking about what you do, your clients, the difference it makes, not only for them but for you. And Namdi, you hit on it like one of the things that has been kind of just I've been spending a lot of time thinking about. You mentioned HBCUs. Like, yes, we went to an HBCU for law school, and I know you all both went to HBCUs for undergrad, and I never forget. I think it was maybe the first or second week of school, or really, I'll say starting with orientation, getting there for orientation, thinking, oh, this is going to be an orientation. They tell me about the school, and we're going to learn about our schedules, this, that, and the third. And I think we had maybe like, what, 2 hours of that. And then it was, oh, by the way, yeah, I need you to read these 20 pages before tomorrow and have a brief. And I was like, wait, I thought school didn't, I thought class started next week. And here you are giving me an assignment on like day one. And then when we came back, they expected us to, to have read it and be able to have a conversation about it. And I'm like, but school didn't start yet. But, and then like, even I think one of the two L's, I think, yeah, they were two L's, Alan and Harry. You guys know Alan
Yeah, yeah,
and
Alan
Harry.
Harry.
Um, I remember they were helping us in like a tutoring session, and they were asking us things that we're like, I don't get it. And it was just, they just kept going back and forth, like repeating it. It was about contracts. And I'll never forget it because it was just the way that they were drilling us, and just, they just kept saying, hey, you got to know this stuff. You got to know it cold. You don't have, you can't take the time to think about it, because basically when you come out of here, people are going to assume that you don't know as much or you're not as good, but you need to know it. And so like those are things that are just, like I said, from like the first week or two that stuck with me. But what would you all say, having gone to an HBCU, what, and I say that also because with everything going on, I've been seeing this conversation come up more about the HBCU versus PWI, and ways we can support the Black community is by sending our kids to HBCUs. So I just wanted to know you guys' thoughts on having attended an HBCU for undergrad and law school. Like, what do you think that did in terms of preparing you, or what, if any, edge or advantage you feel like you got from that experience?
Well, I went to. I'm a two-time HBCU graduate, as you know. Well, technically three. Uh, North Carolina Central twice, but undergrad FAMU. Shout out to my Rattlers, and of course North Carolina Central for grad school and law school. Shout out to the Legal Eagles. But to summarize it, I guess in one word, would have to be confidence.
Mm,
The confidence to go out to get the job done, confidence in yourself, to say that there's no task that's too great for you, um, personally, mentally, physically, like just the confidence that the HBCU family nature and structure just instilled in your mind and in your heart. I don't fear anything. I don't think that there's anything out there that I can't get done. And that's the mentality for me and growth that I obtain through that love and nurturing atmosphere at an HBCU. Obviously, I can't attest to what goes on at the other schools, the majority schools or PWIs, whatever you want to call them. I can't attest to that, so I can only speak as to what I know. And I know that, being around that love and the teachers that really wanted you to succeed, wanted you to progress, and that encouragement, really instilled a lot of confidence in me. And like I said, now I'm able to go out and sit at the table with these big law firms. I had a case last year where I was suing. This was a civil rights case. Um, I was suing an apartment complex, and the apartment complex had their law firm, but also a management company who manages the complex had their law firm. So I'm going against these two big law firms in DC, and each law firm had about 5, 6 attorneys on the case. So it's a total of 10, 11, 12 attorneys in this room. We're going through depositions, so on and so forth. And all of them were majority, and I'm the only minority along with my client in there. And on the outside looking in, it was a tad bit overwhelming. I'm not gonna lie, but I just buckled in, did what I had to do. I knew my case, I knew the facts, I knew the law, and I just went in and did it. I didn't look at them as saying, "Hey, they're superior than me. They're more knowledgeable than me." I didn't look at any of that. I felt then that we were at the same level of competency in education and training, et cetera. And I had the confidence to go in and get the job done. And that to me was, priceless, just having that confidence. And I attribute that to my HBCUs.
What about you, Namdi?
Yeah, I agree with John. I don't think I'll be here even talking to you or having this love that we're going through here. I don't think I'll be here without HBCUs because I went to Grambling State and for undergrad and North Carolina Central for law school, both HBCUs, and I came straight from Africa. So I came straight from Africa to Grambling. It was like a whole shock. Like the love that I got from Grambling, just being around Black people, learning much about Black history. I think that shaped me because coming from Africa, I didn't really know much. I knew about Black American culture because I watched TV, movies, but coming and schooling with majority Black Americans, it shaped me. I had Black professors. We read Black books about Black achievements, and we discussed topics that put us in a better light. So at that point, I knew there was no way I could go to a PWI law school. I had to keep on with the tradition. I was so uncomfortable applying to a PWI law school. Most of my applications were like HBCUs. I made sure I applied to a lot of HBCU law schools, and I got accepted in Central. And I do believe that if I have kids, they're gonna go to a HBCU. That's just me. I don't know where, but they are gonna go there. But like John said, the love, the confidence, like you said, Tavia, when you got to law school, there were, folks out there on the very first day looking out for you. It's the same thing I experienced as well. John helped me. John, Aze, Mike Putney, they all gathered and helped me when I first came. Showed me what to do, and I did the same thing for other students who came as well. And it's the same love, the same confidence that I give out whenever I see, a minority going through stuff is because I've received that love in the past before in school, a law school. Is so to me, it's like second nature doing this stuff, like giving back and trying to help people. It's like second nature because I received all that love coming up. And confidence wise, I don't, I do my job 100%. I don't care if we went to Harvard. Like me and you will go toe to toe. You can't outbeat me in the rules of evidence. I would tell you what it is. Like you might win the case, but you're gonna know that you know I put in work in this case. Like you can't tell me I didn't do my job. So and that's what that HBCU law school gave me, having that confidence to do your job, competing with anybody, just being confident. And I really appreciate you know that experience because it made me who I am today.
Yes, the confidence part, I would say, is definitely one of my main takeaways. Like I went to a PWI for undergrad. I went to Temple, and I appreciate the experience. I love my undergrad experience. I learned a lot. I met a lot of great people. And I always say Temple is a different, it is a different type of space. But at the end of the day, it is still a majority school. And when I take that compared to my experience at Central, it was a bit of a culture shock at first because it was just different. But I gained so much from Central, from that experience. Like you said, the environment, the love, where it's much more nurturing. And
Mm,
there are people who they're not just saying they care for lip service, like they really do mean it. They will, there's professors who will like they don't just have office hours, they will extend them to make sure, okay, are you not getting it? What is it? Let's go through it. Let's make sure you understand it. Classmates taking time away from their study time to spend with you to make sure you understand the concept, even alumni coming back, just like all of that. Like I said, the environment, and then having the opportunity, excuse me, after law school to go back and then work at Central, on the main campus, even just seeing it from that perspective, and then being able to give back to the students. It, like you said, it's just it's an experience like no other, and I'm very grateful for having it. And at this point, as much as I do love Temple, any children that I have, I'm definitely going to be I will be a strong proponent of them going to an HBCU. And like I said, it's just like you said, the confidence, the love, it's something that you can't, sometimes it's hard to even describe that
Mm,
extra thing that you get from being there, and the level of preparation, and then even the network that you have. Like I said,
True.
I've met you all, and even though we haven't necessarily seen or talked to each other in a long time, being able to just reach out, like you said, if you have questions, hey, I'm working on this type of matter. I haven't seen this specific fact pattern before. Have you, or any thoughts? And so, kind of, sorry, I lost my train of thought. But just with that, like you said, with everything going on, all the different conversations, about how Black people are treated in America, and the HBCU versus PWI, the even now in the protests that have happened, and you have people who are taking advantage of that, and there's some that are starting to riot and loot. Even that, like that narrative, it's what I have found interesting, and I don't even know if interesting is the right word. There's this whole thing of this with all the things that are going on. So many people saying, "Oh, you should do this, you should do that," and what are you doing? Even with respect to how people have responded to COVID. Like, I don't know if you've all seen that meme. It's been going around. Like, if you don't come out of this with a new hobby, a new skill, a new business, or new whatever, then it wasn't that you didn't have time. You lack drive, you lack motivation, or whatever it is. And it's like on one hand, I get it, but at the same time, it's how can you dictate how someone else responds to things, or how someone should react, or what they should do? And I think of that with respect to, like I said, the response, the protests that are happening, and the divisiveness that is occurring in the midst of it. But what my thought to it, or I guess my response of just, hey, what can I do? Like I said, I don't do criminal defense. I know, I would say I know enough that, if need be, I can step in and help and advise people and point them in the right direction. But for me, it was, hey, what can I do in this moment? And one of the things that I've discovered, I would say, is my role is to try to start conversation or facilitate conversation. And that's part of, like, hey, like hey, you kind of do have a platform. You started a podcast, so let's talk about it. Let's bring some people in that are, I would say, you all are experts. I consider you all subject matter experts, experts in the field. And so it's come up a few times with just know your rights. I hear that. I have hosted programs about know your rights, making sure people are aware and educating themselves. So, what are some things that you all would say, or you would give advice to people in terms of saying know your rights? Like, what are my rights for those? If because I'm sure there are some people out there who still unfortunately don't know what their rights are. They might think they know them, but like if you all could just give some, I don't know, maybe like a quick summary or overview of like what are your rights, and how would you advise someone conduct themselves if they're interacting with law enforcement?
in
Well,
terms, oh, okay, you go ahead.
well, I was just going to kind of intertwine the last topic of the HBCUs versus PWIs, and the Know Your Rights, and obviously there's some type of disconnect between the races. That there's no sugarcoating. That's what it is. There's a disconnect. They don't know how we are and act and what we say, and vice versa. And maybe it's not such a bad idea to have the best of both worlds, meaning you do your undergrad at HBCU and then your grad at a PWI, because you got to understand and learn about other types of persons, whether that's
Mm-hmm.
ethnic background, religion, sexual orientation. No matter what it is, the more you know, the more informed you are, the less ignorant you may be in certain situations. So because there's a disconnect between the two, they may perceive what we're saying when we're pulled over as negative or derogatory, may take offense to that, and just may lead to a whole bunch of drama and strife. So I think the disconnect is obviously there. But for knowing your rights, obviously it's very important. But just looking at the bigger picture, even outside of the law or what your rights are, I think it's extremely important to just look at this person as a human being. And with human beings and interactions, communication is key. And how you communicate, what you communicate, is bigger than just knowing your rights. And what I mean by that is treat every person with respect, courtesy, and be kind. Another one of my philosophies, and I know I have a lot of them, but you'll catch more bees with honey than you will with vinegar. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're more polite and courteous and kind, the chances are you'll be in a whole better position than you would without it. I'm not trying to knock anybody or say anything disrespectful to those folks, especially who have passed away. Not to point fingers or anything, but I guarantee if you're more courteous and nice, that you'll be in a better position. So not even just knowing the laws, just be respectful to the police officers. Hopefully they'll be respectful back. Comply with what they're asking you. Don't consent to any searches. It's a whole spiel of knowing your rights that can be very tricky to the layperson or common citizen. But you don't have to consent to any searches outside of probable cause and warrantless arrests. And the biggest issue in my practice, and Namdi, you may attest to this, is, and you hear this all the time in songs and movies, TV shows, everything you say can and will be used against you. I can't tell you
Yes.
how many cases I've gotten where there's always a statement from my client stating something. Uh,
Mm.
why are you talking? Why are you saying this? Why are you incriminating yourself?
Mm-hmm.
You're making my job more difficult, and you're placing yourself in a bigger hole, a bigger mess. So
Mm-hmm.
that's probably one of the more important things of knowing your rights. You don't have to say anything. You have the right to remain silent, and you should invoke that right. That is extremely, extremely important. It's funny because people know what it is, but when the lights, camera, action come on, uh, you know, the adrenaline's rushing, and it's game time. I like to use analogies with sports. Anybody who's played competitive sports, whether it be high school, you know that when you practice, you can make every shot or do anything that you want. But when it's game time, Friday night lights, everyone's in the stand, the lights on you, you got the ball in your hands, you about to shoot the last shot or score the last touchdown, you get nervous. So everybody knows you have the right to remain silent. But for some reason, everyone wants to start talking and running their mouth and saying incriminating things when they've been detained by the police. And I just don't understand it, because a lot of times we could have gotten cases dismissed or thrown out, but
Mm-hmm.
for a statement that was provided. So that's very important, to knowing your rights. You don't have to say anything. You have the right to remain silent, and don't consent to any searches. Those are the most important things, I think. And Namdi, you can add on to it.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you hit the most points. Back in my home country, Nigeria, they have a saying that the police is your friend. In America, the police is not your friend. I don't care how friendly he is. I don't care if he's the same race or if he looks like a good guy. They're doing their job, and their job is to prosecute. Their job is to help law enforcement prosecute you. They are not your friends. I agree with John. You could be respectful, be cordial. If they stop you, especially if you're a minority, you want to put your hands on your dash cam. Make sure you don't put your hands in your pocket. If you're trying to reach out for your license, ask them, can I put my hands in my pocket to get my license? Always get consent from them before you move your body, because you know how it is. Things are going crazy out here. Yeah, you are required not to talk to the police officer. You don't have to incriminate yourself. I can't stress how important that is. Like John said, sometimes, and you know what? It's easier said. I agree with that, because you automatically, if the police stops you, you feel like you want to talk and you want to talk your way out of it. You can't talk your way out of the police, man. They want you to talk because you're on camera and they're recording you. So the default is to talk and try to make sense with them, but they're not there to make sense with you. They're there to, do their jobs, and your job is to know your rights and keep quiet. Ask him, am I under arrest? If not, you keep quiet. If you are, I need a lawyer, and you keep quiet. And that's it. If they take you to jail, I want a lawyer, you keep quiet. No matter how pressed you are, how tense you are, it's very tempting to easily forget about that right. But it's really important that you know when to exercise that right. Also, consent to search. Never let the police officer search you, your person, your house, your car without a search warrant. Tell them, go get a warrant. You want to search my house? Where's the warrant? You want to search my car? Go get a warrant. The more you say that, you're on camera, you're being recorded, it's being preserved. That way it helps you in the future if you're being prosecuted. Also, it seems right now things are getting crazy. People are protesting. Your rights to protest. You have a right to protest. You have a right to a peaceful assembly, to assemble peacefully and protest against the government. And obviously, police brutality, injustice are things against the government. So I don't really advocate, burning stuff down or tearing stuff down, but it's not my job to tell oppressed people how to react. My job is to just understand where they're coming from, and to defend them if they are being prosecuted. But protesters have rights as well. You have a right to, express yourself, to condemn the government, to condemn police inequality. I mean, racial inequality, racial injustice, police brutality, and like we're observing here, this was going on, and hopefully things are getting resolved as our voices are being heard.
Yeah, that's very important, Namdi. Just kind of adding a little bit more to that. I feel like a lot of my clients, especially, and just other citizens, want to conduct trial right then and there at the scene of the incident. Scene. They want to have trial right then and there. They're saying, no, you're right, you're wrong, pointing fingers, you can't do this, you can't do that. What's going on? I know my rights. Arguing back and forth with the police officer. That's not the forum for that.
Yeah,
That's what we're here for. That's what the attorneys are here for. Just wait for trial. Wait to go to court. Just be calm, polite, courteous, respectful, most important thing. And if something is wrong, it'll get thrown out in court. Remain calm. Don't try to, talk your way out of something. Like you said, it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
Don't try to argue with them saying you can't do this. And no, just let them do what they're going to do. They're potentially going to mess up on something, and then we'll get it thrown out in court. That's the most important thing. That's what we're here for. We do this. This is our job. Let us do our job, okay? And as far as the protesting concerned, obviously we can't say how someone should express themselves in the riots and everything that has been ensuing lately. But I will say that if you are going to participate, make sure you are informed of the regulations, of any laws that may be imposed. I know here in DC, we've had some curfews for the past few days, and you gotta stay informed of what's going on. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. And if they have a 7 o'clock curfew, you need to be making your way back home at 6:30, because they will arrest, detain you for violation of that. And anything else that's going on. And it's funny to me. I remember learning this in law school, where we have our liberties, our freedoms, pursuant to first 10 amendments, Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, press, religion. But it's almost perceived freedoms. It's not a real freedom because there are restrictions on them. As we all know,
Mhm.
you have a freedom of speech just so long as you don't say XYZ.
Right.
You
So
have the
Mhm.
long
free,
as.
yeah, exactly. So long as you got a freedom of press, so long as you don't mention this. You got a freedom to petition or protest, so long as it at a certain time, at a certain
Mhm.
place,
And you got
Mhm.
designate. So it's
approval and a
perceived exactly.
permission.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
long as, but that's funny. But like I said, make sure that you're informed of local state ordinances, because if you're in a wrong place or wrong time protesting, you might be detained, or if you're past curfew, you might be detained. So just stay informed if you're going to be out there. That's very, very important, and know your rights.
Yes. As y'all were talking, I was thinking, people in church like, yeah, say that again and amen, because it's just like just just shut up. Just stop talking. Like so many people, like you said, they feel like, oh, I know my rights, so I'm gonna just tell you all of them right now. And it's just no, just if y'all take nothing else from today or from this episode, if you're interacting with the police, please be respectful. Ask if they tell you that you're under arrest, okay, I want a lawyer, and then shut up. Like,
Mhm.
don't say anything else. And John, you said it perfectly. Like, when you're interacting with the police, that is not the trial. That's not the time. This is not the time nor the place. And I used to always tell, and I still say, like, survive this interaction, get through this
Mhm.
interaction,
Mhm.
and then whatever that they did that was wrong, we can address it later. But if you're not here, or if you have said something that that has now made things worse, you're making it that much more difficult to try to address what they did wrong later. And I think about when I used to work with students just so many times, like, hey, I'm not saying that they shouldn't have done this and they shouldn't have done that, but you started arguing back with them. You ran. Like, now you're giving them ammunition. You're giving them things to
Premonition.
be able to justify what
Mm.
they did, which because they don't need much. And so it's just be quiet. Be quiet. If you're in the DC, Maryland area and you are interacting with them and something happens, call John Waller. He will be there. And if he's not available, he can recommend someone. If you're in Dallas, Texas, or the surrounding areas of Dallas, call Nnamdi. Like, just don't try to figure it out yourself. Like, hey, I would say we all went to school, we got trained, we do this. And as I said, they are the experts in this area. So just the same, I always hear people say, hey, you're not going to go tell the doctor how to repair your broken arm, or you're not going to tell them how to do their job. You don't go at a restaurant and tell the chef what to do, how to make it. But it seems like when people are dealing with attorneys, and I'm sure you all have experienced this, they like to tell us what it should be or how you should. And like I said, most of my clients, I do more transactional work, and it's often, well, yeah, such and such told me that if I do this, it'll work that way. Well, are you hiring them or are you hiring me?
Mhm.
And so the
Mhm.
same goes, just like there are attorneys here. And like I said, these two, I can say from personal experience, like, they mean what they say. They're passionate about it. And so they're going to give it to you real, straight, no chaser. And I can say that about both of you all, just like in real life, and if you're representing them. And so, like I said, if nothing else, just please just keep your mouth shut and do your part to inform yourself. I remember that saying, if you want to hide something from a black person, put it in a book. I think that
Mm.
as much as I hate that saying, I know that there's truth
Mm.
to it, and it burns me up inside, and I want to make that a lie. So I'm hoping, like I said, like, part of it in doing this, like I said, is to do my part to educate myself and help educate others. But we can, your attorneys can represent you, they can advocate for you, but you've got to do your part and take some time. Like John said, if you're going to go out to a protest, take a few minutes to look up and say, hey, have they put a curfew in place? Where is this? Was this organized? Did they get the right authorization to have this protest? if that's required, so that way you don't, do what you can to minimize the likelihood of having an issue. But then if you do encounter something, make sure to seek advice from counsel. And guys, I have really appreciated talking to you all and just hearing from you. And like I said, I want to be respectful of your time. But before we go, if you could try to sum it up in maybe one or two things of just a lesson that you've learned since starting your own practice.
Uh, First of all, thank you for having both of us. I really appreciate you. I appreciate John for coming as well. My final thoughts, lessons for having my own practice. I would say being given 100% dedication, and that's just it. Like just having 100% focus, attention, dedication is like having a child, and you have to nurture that child as the child grows. You have to be there, support the child. So having a business is like having a child and watching the child grow. You can't just say, you know what, I'm gonna let you slide for a little bit. Let me go do some other stuff. You got to make sure you're there constantly, taking the good things out, the bad things out, bringing the good things in, giving her that focus, attention, nurture, love, a parental aspect of things. That's how I see things. So, that's how, hopefully someone can pick on that and run with it.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. I completely agree with that. And again, thank you both for being here. Latavia, you're doing a wonderful job with this podcast. It's definitely relevant for what's
Mm-hmm.
going on right now. Namdi, it's good seeing you as well, man. And you two are great at what you do. But for me, so many lessons, so much learning, especially, being an entrepreneur. There's the business aspect of it, and there's the professional aspect of it. So you're constantly learning and growing. But for me, I would definitely have to say your due diligence and investigation. Investigation is extremely important. Um, Making sure that you're doing everything that you need to do on the back end of your case to make sure that it's something that you want to go forward with. When I first started out, I was just taking cases. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
afford not to. You gotta keep the lights on. But now I've realized that not every case is a good case, and you don't have to take every case. You got to be more discerning, and investigate, do your due diligence, to make sure that this is something that you want to take on, something that you can take on. If it's above your pay grade, so to speak, you might have to give it up. I've had numerous folks come to me with med malpractice cases, and I say, hey, you know what? As much as I want to take that on, I don't have the resources um, to do it. So you got to just pass it up. You got to stay in your lane, do your investigation, your due diligence. That's been most important to me, and yeah, just constantly learning and growing, and trying to master my craft continuously.
Those are both great lessons. And like I said, they apply, I would say, whether you are in law or in any industry. You guys both said like some great things, but like I said, just in terms of the child and nurturing and giving it 100% and staying in your lane, knowing your lane, finding it, and then staying in it. Like that's something my dad used to say all the time: is stay in your lane, figure it out. And so, like I said, I just want to thank you all again for taking the time to speak with me, to share your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise. And I want to make sure before we get out of here that we make sure you all let each people know how to find you, whether it be your website, social media, and all that good stuff.
Well, my website is attorneyjohnawaller.com. I'm on all social media platforms. Instagram is Madlock, MADLOCQ. LinkedIn, Facebook, John Waller Attorney. So you can, keep up with me and abreast of what's going on in the area, and things that I have going on. Just follow me on social media.
Okay. And
Okay,
now,
my my website is aklaw.com. That's EKEHLAW.com. My phone number, I mean, if you Google me, Nnamdi Ekeh, is 469-351-9684. I'm on social media. Add me, Nnamdi Ekeh. You'll find me. I'll add you. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm on there. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I would surely be willing to help.
All right, well, there, make sure you all take that down, and I'll be sure I'll put you all's information in the show notes as well with links
Great.
to your website so that people can find you. For those of you listening, if you are not already, I ask that you, like, comment, subscribe to the podcast. We are streaming on uh, all platforms. On Instagram, it's podcast. It's all good. On Facebook, it's all good. You can follow me at Lala_Esquire on Instagram and on Facebook. Like I said, there were so many things shared today. So I do hope you all enjoyed. You take the time to just listen and digest, heed the advice that was given, whether it's in terms of starting your own business or just being an informed and educated citizen. And remember that even though it doesn't look or feel so great sometimes, it's all a part of the process. And in the end, it's all good. So thank you, and until next time.